Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Sonic Multiverse. This will likely be the pinnacle of my YouTube career, the masterpiece that I've been crafting ever since I started. However, before we get to my furry blue magnum opus, perhaps a bit of backstory is in order. Back in the ancient year of 2019, the world was blessed with Team Sonic Racing. It was superior from the other Sonic Racing games in the fact that it had the most Sonic characters, but it was inferior in every other way, but that's not important. Trapped within this video game was a single line of dialogue that would change the world and inspire this what if. If you brutally assault Shadow the Hedgehog as Tails, you have a chance of hearing the dialogue, "Who's your daddy, Shadow?" Back in my more naive days, I took this as just a line of cringeworthy dialogue given by the meta-era writers, but I failed to comprehend what Sonic Team was trying to tell us. What if Tails was Shadow's father? And today, we're exploring that concept. So, without further ado, let's get started. Our story begins in Station Square. It's a day much like any other. Subways move, cars honk, and people continue with their daily routine. When suddenly, a large explosion comes from one of the buildings. Emerging from the smoke is Dr. Eggman. Now, it's not uncommon for the Mad Doctor to be attacking Station Square, but this time, within the frame of his Eggmobile, lies the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which he's using to augment the power of his weapons. Oh, it would have been a shame if I left the Chaos Emeralds in that museum. These are the most powerful artifacts in the world, after all. They shouldn't be collecting dust. However, before Eggman has much time to gloat, Sonic and Tails quickly arrive, here to put an end to his scheme. A battle breaks out. Sonic and Tails begin assaulting the Eggmobile with a series of homing attacks and tail whips, which Eggman counters with a series of chaos-imbued lasers. Unfortunately for the heroes, Eggman manages to get in a lucky shot, knocking Sonic to the ground. It wasn't enough to kill the Blue Hedgehog, but it was certainly enough to take him out of the fight. Despite the shock of seeing his best friend taken out, Tails saw his opportunity. He quickly jumped at the Eggmobile, knocking the machine aside. However, as Tails attacked, Eggman tried using the blaster with the Chaos Emeralds once again, in hope of stopping Tails in his tracks. Although he was too late to hit the fox, he was quick enough to activate the power of the emeralds. As the Eggmobile was broken open and the emeralds fell out, they were still trying to transfer their energy. This resulted in a portal emerging. The gravitational pull of the wormhole quickly sucked Tails and the Chaos Emeralds into it, before disappearing into parts unknown. Tails awoke on a cold metal floor. He looked around. There were large monitors, men in white lab coats, gun soldiers, and artificial chaos? But those machines were only known to be on the space colony Ark, and judging by the amount of humans here, that couldn't be the case. Could it? The Ark was long abandoned in his time, but 50 years ago was very much populated. Could it be that the Emeralds had not only sent him through space, but through time as well? Before the Foxboy genius even has a chance to question this any further, he sees a few of the artificial chaoses surrounding the Chaos Emeralds. They began to siphon off some of the negative powers of the Emeralds, driving them insane, forcing them to smash up objects around them. The scientists fled in terror, but Tails stood up to the plate. He wasn't about to let these creatures harm anyone here. The two-tailed fox began to attack the artificial chaoses, taking out a handful of them, but before long they began to overwhelm him, with dozens of them attacking him at once. Tails was knocked aside by the scientific abominations. Tails began to limp himself back up onto one knee. He looked over to see that the artificial chaos were about to attack a young girl and an old scientist. Tails knew exactly who they were. The man was Gerald Robotnik, the grandfather of Dr. Eggman, and the young girl was his granddaughter, Maria. Tails wasn't about to let them or anyone else be hurt. That's when he looked around and saw the Chaos Emeralds. He remembered how perfect chaos would siphon off the negative powers of the Chaos Emeralds, but the negative powers could be removed by the positive force of the Chaos Emeralds. That's when Tails knew what he had to do. Tails grabbed the emeralds, and with a steadfast, open heart, he used his positive emotions to unlock the Chaos Emerald's true power. In a strong flash of light, where Miles Tails' power once stood, now was Super Tails. At near light speed, he began plowing through the artificial chaos, removing any chaos energy from them. The watery abominations, of course, tried to fight back, but their attacks did nothing to the boy genius. He even caught one of the watery tentacles, tugging the beast towards him before ripping the chaos energy out of it. "I won't let you hurt them," Tails said. "I've taken on the real chaos before. You're all just a bunch of knockoffs." Seeing the hundreds of artificial chaos in front of him, he decided to copy an ability he had seen Sonic use a couple times before. Tails began to rev up into a spin dash as chaos energy began to build up, turning into a light speed attack, taking out all the artificial chaos in a single stroke. As the artificial chaos began to reform, their chaos energy was gone, reverting them back to their far more controllable states. As the job was now done, Tails allowed his super form to end, reverting back to his base form. The Fox Boy genius asked the scientist and his granddaughter if they were okay. They responded that they were fine and that they were amazed with what he had just done. Tails modestly said that it was nothing and that his friend does a lot more impressive stuff than that. Gerald asked the two-tailed fox where he came from, which Tails responded explaining how, due to the power of the Chaos Emeralds, he was sent 50 years back in time. He made sure to keep things vague as to not reveal too much about the future. He also explained how he knows he can return to the future if there's another person here who can use chaos control, which Gerald just so happened to have someone. Using a Gizoid that Gerald had found a couple months ago, Tails would be able to travel back to the future with the help of the Gizoid by allowing it to copy his chaos control. One brief learning segment later, and they were prepared. Both Tails and the Gizoid enacted chaos control together, opening up a wormhole through time and space. Tails thanked the professor for his help before disappearing into the wormhole. As Gerald looked where the fox once stood, he noticed a small orange hair, sparking with chaos energy. It must have been left behind, a small piece that shed off during their chaos control. Gerald got curious and decided to plug it into his Project Shadow experiment to see what would happen. Gerald had saw how the fox boy had used his two-tailed birth defect to better suit his capabilities. So he wondered if his ultimate lifeform project could do the same. As the final stages of the ultimate lifeform's creation came to a close, Gerald noticed how the creature began to take on a similar look to Tails. Although the creature had a similar stature to that of a Mobian hedgehog and the stripes of a black-armed soldier, instead of the normal red, it now had the yellow of the fox, and even suited two tails of its own. Gerald marked this as a complete success, but before he could celebrate, he suddenly heard someone else enter the room.
"Hello, Gerald. I see you've been busy."
Black Doom, I wasn't expecting you."
Don't play coy with me, Professor. I was coming to see the finalization of my ultimate weapon. But Doom's Eye has informed me that not only have you tainted my blood with the DNA of another's, but that it had the Chaos Emeralds and you allowed it to escape.
Gerald attempted to come up with an excuse, but it was too late. A blade of the Black Arms penetrated his chest, leaving the old man lying dead on the ground. The Black Arms soldier behind the professor simply grabbed its weapon and looked to its master for orders.
Round up a squad and kill all the humans aboard the Ark, and then find the Eclipse Cannon. Our invasion of this disgusting planet of parasites begins tonight.
The alien soldier left the room to begin its horrific task. Black Doom then turned towards Shadow, still unconscious in his pod.
Despite your tainted DNA, you are still useful to me, Shadow.
50 years in the future, Tails arrives back in Station Square, but things are different. Where there was once crowds of happy people living their day-to-day life, there's now fire and rusted old machines of war. In the sky, Tails can see disgusting creatures flying about. He recognizes them. They're the Black Wings, the bird-like creatures of the Black Arms. Before jumping into action, Tails begins to think, just what the heck is going on here? Was he sent to another dimension? Or did his meddling in the past cause ripple effects to the future? Did he even end up in the right time period? Regardless, he's confident he can take on the Black Arms. He's fought them before, and besides, he has the Chaos Emeralds now. There's nothing they can do against him. When suddenly, he felt a strong hit at the back of his head, knocking him to the ground. A figure raced around him at near light speed, picking up the Chaos Emeralds, before skating in front of him. Tails looked up. The figure looked familiar, for all the wrong reasons.
Finally, I got all the Chaos Emeralds. Now, may the ritual of prosperity begin.
And that's where we'll be leaving this what if for right now. What do you think will happen next? Because this is definitely not just a one-off April Fool's Day joke. This is definitely something I intend on continuing as time goes on. How do you think Tails will stand up to his new ultimate life form son? Especially now that he has all the Chaos Emeralds. And how has the timeline been changed now that Black Arms invaded Earth far earlier than they should have? Leave your answers in the comments below. I'm ComicFan13, and have a happy April Fool's Day.